Let's move around along here to our next call, and this is going to be Wesley or Wes. Hello, Wes. How you doing?
Hey Bart, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Good, good.
Get a hand for us?
Yeah, so this is at Commerce in LA.
Commerce in
Playing the
L.A., huh?
yep. Commerce in California.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying. Okay, I'm fairly familiar.
Yeah, I know you are. Playing the 5-10 game with eight
Ah,
players.
510, eight-handed, and this is 1500 cap unless they've changed it. I don't know if you caught the video from yesterday that we put up. We've been putting up a video every single day, but it was one with Sean, who I think is actually calling in at the end again with another hand where somebody went north in this hand at Aria. I tweeted about it yesterday, but this was a common thing at Commerce 510. And I don't know if they changed the rule because they do it differently out here in East Coast. The thing that would kind of irritate a lot of the regs would be if you table change at Commerce, it's like a new game. So you have to bring it down. Like, say you build your stack up to 8,000 and there's six main games and you table change, you got to bring it down. Do they still do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to bring it down to 15.
Right.
Yep.
Whereas if it's a must move, you have to take your chips. And that was another thing people would do is they would sneak chips on between a must move and a main game. But okay. So 510, eight-handed, 1500 cap. Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
I have Queen of Hearts, Jack of Hearts on the small blind.
Okay.
And middle position raises to 30 and it folds around to me and I just call.
Are you 1500 effective, by the way?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I am. I have 4,200. So 2,400 affected.
All right. So 2400 effective. So you got a lot of chips here. So you're in the small blind. MP goes to 30. You're in the small blind with Queen, Jack of Hearts. So you're at, 240 big blinds. I mean, once it gets to late position, usually it's a three better fold. This is not a three blind game, so you're not quite incentivized. If I were to pick a few hands that I might flat from the small blind, especially against a big blind, maybe that's nitty, maybe this would be one of them. But normally you are doing three better folding. I mean, I think it's probably pretty close. I think folding is, I think, way too tight out of the question. So hero calls, and what does the big blind do?
Yes. I was thinking about three betting, but I know that the big blind was very aggressive, so I was fully expecting him to raise. So
You were
um,
expecting the big blind to raise?
yeah.
So what were you trying to do?
I just knew that every pot that he played against me, he was just very aggressive.
But you don't
So I
want to.
was
But
just
you
gonna
don't want
call
to get
him.
squeezed though here, right? And play a double flop from out of position, do you? That would seem like it would be a big headache. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean by that? Like you're gonna call,
yeah.
and then if he's gonna squeeze, that's where it might lend itself to a three better fold. If you've got someone who's very very squeeze happy, I mean that's a rarity, but that's where I would start to do three better folding if I've got a big blind that squeeze. Did the big blind squeeze?
Yeah. So he
Okay.
he made it 125.
Okay. And the initial razor?
The initial raiser calls, and I call. And the initial raiser, the middle position, was someone that was playing almost every single hand.
So this is interesting because I did this special CLP video that we put up in the coursework with Nate Schmidt, Nate Ball, who's obviously in the live chat here. I mean, this is a little bit different, but one of the things that we talked about in the middle of that episode, for subscribers, you can find it in Fast Track Coursework over in the Solve for Live area or the latest CLP video, was that the way that sometimes, now this is multi-way, it's a little bit different, but it's interesting to think about this, that sometimes calling with direct suited connectors that interact less with a reasonable three bet range can sometimes be better, like a 5-6 suited, 6-7 suited versus some of the suited broadways. And I've never really given that a whole lot of thought, but it does make sense. This is a little bit multi-way. I think probably once you're in there, it's probably still probably too good to fold, but it definitely can be tricky. All right, 375 to the flop, okay.
So the flop comes King of Hearts, Six of Hearts, Four of Hearts.
King of Hearts, Six of Hearts, Four of Hearts. So you flop a flush. By the way,
Yeah.
somebody makes up a good point. Would you ever, Juju in the live chat said, you might take, I don't know about Queen Jack of Hearts because it doesn't, I mean, it's got some blocking property, but you can once in a while play like a back raise five bet if you're like, this would be great if you had kings or aces and you thought, oh, I think the big blind is just over squeezing and I'm going to come back over the top as a squeeze. It's just something to think about. So you flop a flush.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I lead out for 100. I don't know if that was
Well,
the right move to do to begin with,
that is
but
very, very difficult to balance, sir. I'm all for fast playing in live poker, but I just would take a step back and say, are you leading ever out here with like king jack of diamonds, king queen of spades, ace king offsuit, something like that? It might not matter. Sometimes you can play a hand so fast that it's super unorthodox, where you actually might get more value by playing it straight up as a lead, as opposed
mhm.
to going for a check raise. It's just a little bit bizarre in a 3-bet pot, especially with a high low low texture where a king is going to be represented. This is not like 7-5-4 all hearts where it might get checked through a lot. So, but okay, so you go lead for 100.
I lead for 100, big blind calls and MP calls.
Yeah, and if these guys are so aggressive, why not give them some rope to hang themselves? Why not build a pot up here too?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm clearly, I should be clearly in the lead, and I was just gonna try to build a pot.
Well, but build a pot up with a check raise as opposed to a lead, because you just went like 25% and it went call call.
Yeah, but I was also expecting one of them to raise me too, because that's what the big blind had been doing every single hand.
But Wes, this is a monotone board. It's different than like a normal. You can say that if it was king 6-4 with a two flush, yes, but people tend to play a little bit. Even the most aggro players play a little bit more conservative on monotone boards. I mean, that's just my thought. Okay, 675 to the turn.
So the turn comes king of spades.
Okay.
So it pairs the board,
Mm-hmm.
and I lead out again for 400.
I mean, it's so hard for me to like sort of imagine myself in this spot as played as a double flat and then lead. But so you lead for 400. I think maybe, I'm trying to think here. So you would think that somebody has a king or the ace of hearts here, especially when you've got queen
Right.
jack. So you've got the second and the third nut block. Because I was thinking, would you ever get tricky with it? But it would be kind of disastrous if somebody checked back a king here, because I'm kind of trying to put myself in your opponent's spot. Like when you lead flop, okay, you are either going to have like a flush, which is weird, a king, or a set for the most part, right? So sets are filled up, sixes and fours. You still have a flush or king X, still not going to necessarily fold. So if I ever have the ace of hearts here, I'm never betting. I'm always taking a card. So, and then if one of the guys has a king, I don't know, he might just kind of sense that something's up. So I probably would continue the lead, even though this is very unorthodox as opposed to a check. The sizing is in 2/3. I mean, people in the live chat are getting sort of on you about that. I don't have a huge issue. It's just the hand's a little bit off the rail. So you go 400, okay?
And the big blind calls and middle position folds.
So big blind calls and MP folds. So now it is 1475, right? Okay, so 1475, and you're 2400 effective, so you probably have like 1800 left or something in
Yeah,
your
big
stack.
big blind has 1800
Right,
left. Yeah.
right. Okay,
The river comes a jack of clubs.
okay.
So at this point, I already know I was out of whack with how I played every street. So I don't know what I was really going through. I decided to check here.
So I'm not. I think I'll sort of extrapolate from what I said on why I actually like your lead on the turn, even though the hand is a little bit, well, it's very, very unorthodox. And again, in general, I'm not a huge fan of check calling the river here, because you the only reason for you, the two reasons for you to check, right, are for somebody to bluff, right? That's the most obvious thing, and for someone to value own themselves. I just can't imagine someone betting here with the ace of hearts after you've taken this line. There's no way you're folding. Like, what do you? It's just, if they have the ace of hearts, it just always looks like a check call. So that's number one. Number two, you try to get someone to value own themselves that would otherwise fold to a bet. It's not just that they're going to value bet, but they would otherwise fold to a bet. And if he's got a king, if he's sort of as wild as you say he is, which is probably not a great player, he's probably not going to fold to a bet, but then value bet himself if you check to him. So that's why I don't really know the need why I would check call here or why I would plan to check here.
I was actually thinking that, yeah, if he had a king, he would most likely just check it back.
And I would hate it if you could bet and get called. I mean, why not just use some like I don't think you have to go crazy, crazy large here. I mean, listen, like there are guys that I might vary my river sizing that just are never going to fold a king. So those guys, maybe I do go like 2/3 to full pot, but you could go 1/3 to half or something like that. But I'm just not a huge fan of the check here. Do you think you're beat or something? Do you think you're beaten?
I just had a bad feeling that I was beat. So I actually talked myself into
Beaten by what? Beaten by what? By King Jack?
probably not King Jack because I had a Jack, but pocket sixes, pocket fours. This
That he
villain,
squeezed out of the big blind, then
yeah,
just
had
called.
played a lot of small pairs very aggressively in our session, which was I was like 4 or 5 hours in.
I mean, again, what you had said back on the flop was he was doing a lot of raising. Would he not raise with those some of those sets on the flop?
Yeah, that's what was confusing to me.
All right, so you check and what happens?
So I check and he jams.
So big blind jams, which is interesting because that's for all. So it's over a pot size bet, 1,600, something like that.
Yeah, about 1800.
Well, that's very polarizing. That's certainly. I don't think that's King X. I mean, I think we can assume that's not King X. So what are the hands that beat you, right? Flop, nut, flush, and boat,
Yeah.
right? Would he ever somehow get here with Jack? He can't really get here with Jacks because you have the Jack of Hearts, or he shouldn't. I don't think, especially when it goes bet over call. So I think we can throw that out. And then he called the turn. So he doesn't have Jacks full. So it's sixes full, fours full, and the nut flush, and he's not, overplaying, and he's not overplaying a king. For some reason, in these call-ins, like the last few months, we've gotten this like rash of people that are just running these insane bluffs. It's really hard for me to say because I would never get here like this, but I would say you're fairly high up in your range. And if you say he's maniacal, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with calling here.
Yeah, so I tank forever, and I never do this, but I actually show the table in my hand to try to get a reaction from him, like, and I just also kind of feel bad for tanking for so long. Um,
But you do lose to a lot of combos of the nut flush, as Nate points out.
yeah, so I couldn't find the call, so I ended up folding.
So Hero folds, and did you ever find out what he had?
No, and he said to someone else after I had turned over my hand that like we'll never know or something like
Was
that.
it
So
was
I
he
didn't even bother asking.
was the big blind a euro?
Yes.
Uh-oh. think I call. Think I call. I don't know. I mean, there's different types of euros and things like that, but very, very unorthodox. That's insane that you played it like that and then check folded at the end. But what I will take away from this is that one of the most basic things, if you can pull yourself back, if you don't think that Jack is that scary because you have a Jack and he's not going to have Jacks, right? And he's not going to have King Jack. Let's say that the Jack is somewhat irrelevant, even though he could have King Jack. Then there's something wrong with your line and there's something wrong with your turn sizing because very, very basic for new players. Whenever you make a bet and then you get scared when you're betting for value and then you get scared when you're called, like you no longer have the best hand because you've taken such an aggressive action where you think you're beat now, something's wrong. Now, I don't necessarily say that that's the case, but if that's what you're thinking, something's out of whack. But I appreciate the call. Thanks, Wes. Appreciate it.